Think about someone you trusted completely, someone you told things you never said out loud before, someone you thought, this person, they're different. Now think about what happened after. Maybe they didn't betray you. Maybe they just changed. Or you changed. Or life got between you. But somewhere along the way, you started keeping a little more to yourself, sharing a little less, opening the door a little slower. And the strange thing is, you didn't even notice it happening. You didn't decide to become this way. You just arrived here. Tonight, I want to talk about trust. Not the big, dramatic betrayals. Not the lies. Not the cheating. Not the moment someone broke your heart into pieces. I want to talk about the quiet erosion. The tiny daily moments that, over years, slowly teach you that keeping people at arm's length is just safer. And I want to ask you something that might sound strange. What if growing up and losing trust isn't a wound you need to heal, but a message you haven't learned to read yet? Stay with me, because by the end of this, I think something is going to shift for you. When you were a child, trust wasn't a decision you made. You didn't evaluate people. You didn't read body language or look for red flags. You didn't Google someone before letting them in. You just trusted, fully, recklessly, beautifully. A stranger smiled at you in the supermarket, and you smiled back and told them your name, and your dog's name, and what you had for breakfast. Your parents didn't have to earn your trust. Your friends didn't need a track record. Trust was the default setting. But somewhere between then and now, someone or something hit a switch. And I don't think it was one big moment. I think it was 1,000 small ones. The friend who shared your secret. The person who said, "I'll always be here," and then wasn't. The time you were vulnerable, and the room went quiet in a way that made you feel foolish for opening your mouth. Each one of those moments left a tiny deposit of caution somewhere inside you. And those deposits, they don't dissolve, they accumulate. Psychologists call it self-protective distancing, but I prefer a simpler name, the architecture of survival. Because here's the truth no one says out loud. Learning not to trust everyone isn't a failure. It's intelligence. The problem is, sometimes that intelligence becomes an asterisk prison. And that's what I want to unpack with you. Because there's a very specific point, a line you cross without realizing, where wisdom becomes asterisk isolation. We'll get to that. But first, I need to tell you about a tree. There's a phenomenon in nature called asterisk defensive growth. When a tree is repeatedly damaged by insects, by drought, by repeated storms, it stops growing tall. It starts growing asterisk inward. It thickens its bark. It focuses its energy on protection rather than expansion. From the outside, it looks strong, unshakable, untouchable. But botanists know that a tree that stopped reaching upward has quietly stopped reaching for light. without light, eventually, even the strongest bark begins to rot from the inside. I think about that tree a lot when I think about what happens to us after years of disappointment. We grow inward. We get quieter about what we want. We share less. We need less. Or we tell ourselves we need less. We become incredibly capable at being around people while remaining completely unreachable. And the terrifying part, we're often proud of it. I'm independent. I don't need validation. I trust myself. And maybe that's all true. But ask yourself honestly, and I mean honestly, when was the last time you let someone see something in you that wasn't polished, that wasn't ready, that wasn't safe? If you're struggling to answer that, this episode is for you. Now here's where it gets interesting, because I'm not going to tell you to open up more or be vulnerable. You've heard that advice. It hasn't worked, and I think I know why. There's a different question we should be asking, and it's one that most people never think to ask. For years, when people struggle with trust, the question everyone asks is, how do I trust people more? And then we go looking for better people, or we try to lower our standards for red flags, or we force ourselves to share things before we're ready. But that question is wrong. The real question isn't, how do I trust people more? It's, what am I actually afraid of discovering? Because here's what I've come to believe. We don't stop trusting people because they hurt us. We stop trusting people because being hurt confirmed something we were already afraid was true. That we're too much or not enough. That people always leave eventually. That being known means being rejected. That love is temporary, and the only permanent thing is the moment it ends. Those beliefs, they weren't created by one person. They were written early, before you had the language to argue with them. And every betrayal afterward wasn't really a betrayal. It was evidence for a story you've been telling yourself since before you can remember. So the person you can't trust anymore, is it really them you're afraid of? Or is it the version of yourself you become when you're abandoned? I want to stay with that question for a moment, because I think the answer, or the beginning of an answer, lives in something we overlook completely, something that has nothing to do with other people. There's a type of trust that no one talks about in these conversations. Not trust in friends, not trust in partners, not even trust in yourself, though that matters too. I'm talking about trust in time, the quiet, difficult belief that not every ending is a punishment, that some people are meant to walk with you for a season, not a lifetime, that the silence after loss isn't the last word. When we grow up and lose the ability to trust, what we're really losing is the ability to tolerate uncertainty. Children trust recklessly, not because they're naive, but because they haven't learned yet. to see uncertainty as a threat. They live in the present, completely, totally. And somewhere along the way, we traded that presence for prediction. We started needing to know how things would end before we let them begin. We started doing risk assessments where intimacy used to live. And the cost of that is a life where everything is asterisk safe, asterisk, and nothing is alive. I want to offer you a different definition of trust, not as vulnerability, not as naivety. Trust, to me, is an asterisk act of defiance. It's saying, yes, this might end. Yes, I might get hurt. Yes, I've been here before, and I'm choosing to be here anyway. Not because I'm certain, but because I refuse to let fear write the story of my life. That's not weakness. That's the bravest thing a human being can do. The person who stays closed isn't protecting themselves. They're just choosing a slower loneliness over a faster one. And I think somewhere inside you, you already know that. That's why you clicked on this video. Not because you don't know the problem, because some part of you is still looking for a reason to try again. And that part of you, that part is worth listening to. So let me leave you with this. You didn't become someone who struggles to trust because you're broken. You became this way because you paid attention, because you learned, because you survived. The question now isn't whether you can go back to who you were before. You can't, and you shouldn't want to. The question is, who do you want to become next? Not the version that trusted blindly, not the version locked behind thick walls, but someone wiser, someone who's learned to distinguish between the people worth the risk and the ones who aren't, someone who knows that real trust isn't the absence of fear, it's the decision to move, despite asterisk it. That's the work, and it doesn't happen all at once. It happens in small moments. A word you say out loud that you'd usually keep in. A feeling you admit to someone who might not understand. A door you open just a crack to see who's there. Start there, just a crack. If this reached something in you tonight, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Not to send a message, just to say, I thought of you. That too is a form of trust. And if you want to keep exploring these conversations, subscribe. We do this every week. Real talk, slow thoughts, no noise. And the next episode, it's going to ask you a question, even harder than tonight's. How do you stay in love with someone when you're still learning to love yourself? I'll see you there.